know what you really are. You're gay, Minho.
Minho's hand shook as he slid the ring onto Eliana's finger. Not from fear, from raw anger. 10 years of hiding who he was, and now Seoul's most powerful closeted CEO was marrying a woman he'd never even spoken to. Third row, Jae-sung, hands clasped so tight the knuckles were white, face blank, eyes dead. Minho met them for half a second, then looked away before the guilt could swallow him whole. This wasn't a wedding. It was the most expensive coming-out prevention money could buy. Welcome to K-fairytales stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. The reception hall glittered with enough wealth to fund a small country. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across marble floors. Politicians mingled with tech moguls. Old money assessed new money with practiced disdain. And at the center of it all, Minho stood beside a stranger wearing white, accepting congratulations for a marriage that felt like a funeral. Eliana Cole smiled at guests with the grace of someone trained in survival, her dark skin luminous against the ivory silk of her gown, her natural hair styled in an elaborate crown of braids and gold thread that made her look like African royalty transplanted into Seoul's elite. She was beautiful in a way that made the room stare. Not just beautiful, magnetic. And Minho felt nothing but the ghost of Jae-sung's gaze burning into his back. 3 months earlier, the scandal had nearly destroyed everything. A tech journalist got photos. Minho leaving Jae-sung's apartment at dawn. Their hands linked for just a moment on a quiet street. Nothing explicit, nothing definitive, but enough. Enough that his father's security team had to buy the files. Enough that whispers started circulating through Seoul's business elite. Enough that his father summoned him to the family estate and delivered an ultimatum wrapped in silk and steel. You marry, you produce an heir, or I dismantle you piece by piece until there's nothing left but shame. His father had already chosen the bride, Eliana Cole, daughter of a Nigerian oil magnate with business interests across Asia, educated at Oxford, fluent in 5 languages including Korean, and most importantly, willing to accept a business arrangement for reasons Minho didn't yet understand. The contract was ironclad, marriage for 3 years minimum, public appearances as required, discretion guaranteed, and a financial settlement that would set her up for life when the arrangement ended. She'd signed without hesitation. He'd signed because the alternative was losing everything he'd built and destroying his mother in the process. The wedding had been planned in 6 weeks. His mother cried through the entire ceremony, thinking they were tears of joy. His father watched with the satisfaction of a man who'd successfully contained a crisis. And Jae-sung sat in the 3rd row because refusing the invitation would have raised questions, would have confirmed suspicions, would have painted a target on both their backs. Minho had begged him not to come. Jae-sung had come anyway, because loving Minho apparently meant watching him marry someone else while pretending his heart wasn't being carved out with a dull knife. Now, at the reception, Minho felt Eliana's hand slip into his as they moved through the crowd. Her palm was warm, her grip surprisingly strong. She leaned close, her breath ghosting against his ear, her accent carrying traces of Lagos and London blended smooth. "You're staring at him," she murmured in English. "Stop. He's going to break." Minho's jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about," she said quietly, still smiling for the cameras. "I know why you married me. I know why he's here. And I know if you don't stop looking at him like that, everyone else is going to know too." Minho forced himself to focus on her. Really focus. Up close, Eliana was even more striking. High cheekbones that could cut glass, full lips painted a deep burgundy, eyes the color of expensive cognac, intelligent and assessing. Her curves were pronounced, drawing attention and whispers from Seoul's society, women who'd probably never seen a black woman in person before tonight. There was something fierce in the set of her shoulders, something that suggested she'd walked through fire and learned to love the heat. For the first time since this nightmare began, curiosity flickered through his numbness. Who was she? Why had she agreed to this? She must have read the question in his face because her smile sharpened. "Later," she said. "When there aren't 300 people watching us pretend to be in love, they're not just watching us, Minho said quietly, noting the stares directed at her, some curious, some hostile, some brazenly lustful. They're watching you. Let them watch, Eliana said with a confidence that bordered on defiance. I've been stared at my whole life. I'm used to it. But something flickered in her eyes, something that suggested the armor she wore was newer than she pretended. The night dragged on with the inevitability of a slowly tightening noose. Speeches filled with lies about destiny and perfect matches, toasts to a future built on foundations of deception. Minho danced with Eliana because the choreography of weddings demanded it, and she moved with unexpected grace, her body fitting against his with professional precision. She was tall, nearly matching his height in heels, and he felt the weight of male gazes tracking her across the floor. One of his business rivals, a man named Park who'd always been too aggressive, too entitled, caught Eliana's eye and smiled with open invitation. Minho's hand tightened on her waist. Instinct, possession, absurd given the circumstances. Eliana felt the shift in his grip. Jealous already, she murmured with amusement. We've been married for 3 hours. I'm not jealous, Minho said flatly. I just don't like the way he's looking at you. She laughed, soft and low. That's literally the definition of jealousy, but it's sweet, in a completely meaningless sort of way. He wanted to argue but couldn't find the energy. Instead, he guided her through the steps, hyper-aware of how her dress clung to her curves, how her braids brushed his shoulder when she turned her head, how she smelled like something floral and expensive and entirely unfamiliar. When Eliana excused herself to the restroom, Minho found himself gravitating toward the bar. He ordered whiskey, neat, and tried not to scan the crowd for Jae-sung. Tried and failed. He found him near the windows, silhouetted against the Seoul skyline, nursing what looked like his 4th drink. Something in Minho's chest cracked. Before he could think better of it, before he could remember all the reasons this was dangerous, he was moving toward him. They hadn't spoken directly in 3 months, not since the photos, not since everything fell apart. Jae-sung saw him coming. For a moment, something naked and desperate flashed across his face. Then the mask slammed down, smooth and impenetrable. "Congratulations," Jae-sung said, his voice perfectly modulated. "She's beautiful." Minho wanted to scream, wanted to grab him, shake him, demand he stop pretending this was fine. Instead, he said, "You didn't have to come." "Yes," Jae-sung said quietly. "I did. Because if I didn't, people would ask why. And we can't have people asking questions, can we?" The bitterness in his tone was acid. "That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair," Jae-sung said. "You're married. To her. And I'm supposed to smile and congratulate you and pretend my entire world didn't just end." Minho's throat tightened. "Jae-sung, I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice," Jae-sung said. "You just chose your father's approval over us." "That's not true, and you know it," Minho said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "If I'd refused, he would have destroyed both of us. Exposed you, ruined your career. Maybe," Jae-sung said. "But at least we would have been honest. At least we would have been together." He set his glass down with careful precision. "Enjoy your wedding night, Minho. I hope she's worth it." Then he was walking away, disappearing into the crowd, and Minho stood frozen, watching the only person he'd ever loved slip through his fingers for the 2nd time in 3 months. When he returned to the main hall, Eliana was waiting, her expression unreadable. She'd seen the exchange. Had to have seen it. "We should leave," she said quietly. "Before you do something stupid." Minho nodded, unable to trust his voice. They made their excuses, accepted final congratulations, and escaped to the limousine waiting outside. The privacy partition was already up. The moment the door closed, the perform ended. They sat on opposite sides of the leather seats, the space between them feeling like an ocean. The penthouse Minho owned in Gangnam was where they'd be living. Separate bedrooms, separate lives. They'd discussed this in the one meeting they'd had before the wedding, clinical and brief, outlining expectations and boundaries. But walking into the space together felt different, felt real in a way the wedding hadn't. Eliana kicked off her heels the moment they entered, and Minho watched as she transformed from elegant bride to something more human, more tired. She was even taller than he'd realized, nearly his height without the shoes, and there was something almost vulnerable in the way she rubbed her feet. "I'll show you to your room," Minho said, his voice stiff. Eliana nodded. They walked through the expansive living area in silence. He opened the door to the guest suite he'd had prepared. It was beautiful, decorated in soft neutrals with an ensuite bathroom and a view of the city. "This is yours," he said. "Bathroom's through there. Closet's been stocked with clothes in your size. If you need anything else, just let me know." "Thank you," Eliana said. Then, softer, "I'm sorry. About your friend. He's not just a friend," Minho said before he could stop himself. The admission hung between them. Eliana's expression shifted to something like understanding. "I know," she said gently. "I figured it out when I saw the way you looked at him during the ceremony, the way he looked at you." She moved closer, and Minho caught her scent again, jasmine and something warm underneath. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry you had to choose this. I'm sorry we both did." "What do you mean?" Minho asked. "We both? What are you running from?" Eliana smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's a conversation for another night. When we're both less exhausted, get some rest. We have the rest of our lives to figure out how to survive this." She closed the door softly, leaving Minho alone in the hallway. He stood there for a long moment before retreating to his own room. Sleep didn't come. Instead, he lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Jae-sung's hollow eyes and Eliana's mysterious sadness and the cage he'd locked himself into with his own hands. The next morning arrived with painful brightness. Minho woke early, showered, dressed for the office. When he emerged, Eliana was already in the kitchen, wearing silk pajamas and making coffee like she'd lived there for years. She'd taken out the braids, and her natural hair formed a soft cloud around her face. "Morning," she said without looking at him. "There's extra coffee if you want it." He poured himself a cup, leaning against the counter. "Do you always wake up this early?" "Only when I can't sleep," she said, "which was most of last night." "Same here." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Eliana said, "We should probably establish some ground rules for how this is going to work." Minho nodded. "I'm listening." "1," she said, holding up a finger. "We maintain separate lives. You do your thing, I do mine. No questions asked. 2, we show up together for public events as required. We smile, we pretend, we sell the illusion. 3." She paused, meeting his eyes. "We don't lie to each other, not about anything that matters. In this house, we're honest, even if it hurts." "Agreed," Minho said. "Anything else?" "Yes," Eliana said. 4, if either of us falls in love with someone else, someone real, we tell the other person immediately. We figure out how to handle it together. We don't let it become a weapon." Minho thought of Jae-sung, thought of how that ship had already sailed and sunk. "Deal," he said quietly. She extended her hand. He shook it. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, not attraction exactly, but awareness. She was real, solid, here, and for the next 3 years, she was technically his wife. That evening, Minho returned home to find Eliana had taken over the living room. Books everywhere, her laptop open, papers spread across the coffee table. She'd changed into comfortable clothes, leggings, and an oversized sweater that slipped off one shoulder. "Working," she explained when she caught him staring. "I'm writing my dissertation, trying to, anyway." "On what?" Minho asked, genuinely curious. "Post-colonial literature and identity formation in diaspora communities," she said. "Riveting stuff. Keeps me up at night. In the best way." He found himself smiling despite everything. "You're a student?" "PhD candidate," she corrected. "Oxford. I was supposed to defend next month, but then this happened." She gestured vaguely at the space between them, at their arrangement, at their lives. Minho set down his briefcase. "Why did you agree to this? If you were so close to finishing?" Eliana's expression shuddered. "That's a long story. I've got time." "No," she said firmly. "You don't. You have dinner with your parents tonight. Remember? Your mother called earlier to remind you." Minho cursed under his breath. He'd forgotten. "Right. Do you want to come? We could sell the newlywed thing." Eliana shook her head. Not tonight. I'm not ready to navigate your family dynamics yet. Give me a week to prepare. He understood that, more than she probably realized. Dinner with his parents was excruciating. His mother asked invasive questions about the wedding night with barely concealed excitement. His father watched Min-ho with the satisfaction of a man who'd successfully contained a scandal. Min-ho played his role perfectly, smiling through descriptions of married life, deflecting questions about grandchildren, pretending everything was exactly as it should be. When he finally escaped back to the penthouse, it was past midnight. The living room was dark except for the glow of Eliana's laptop. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, her head pillowed on her arm, her body curved in a way that looked uncomfortable. Min-ho stood there, unsure what to do. Then, carefully, he lifted her. She was surprisingly solid, all curves and warmth. She stirred but didn't wake as he carried her to her bedroom, laying her gently on the bed. He pulled the blanket over her, and as he did, she murmured something in her sleep. A name, Samuel. Her voice cracked around it, and even unconscious, pain etched itself across her face. Min-ho backed away slowly, so she was running from someone too. Someone who'd hurt her enough that even sleep wasn't safe. The following week fell into an unexpected rhythm. Min-ho worked brutal hours at the office, managing his tech empire while dodging questions about his new wife. Eliana spent her days writing, occasionally venturing out to libraries and cafes, always returning before evening. They'd have dinner together sometimes, conversations that started stilted and gradually became easier. She was brilliant, he discovered, sharp and funny in ways that caught him off guard. She'd make observations about Korean culture that were insightful without being judgmental, ask questions about his work that showed genuine interest, and slowly, impossibly, they became something like friends. It helped that there was no pressure, no expectations of romance or physical intimacy. They were two people trapped in the same cage, and misery loved company. But there were moments when Min-ho would catch himself watching her, wondering about the sadness that lived behind her eyes, wanting to know her story even as he kept his own locked away. 2 weeks into the marriage, Eliana had to attend her first public event with Min-ho, a charity gala hosted by one of Seoul's most prominent families. She spent hours getting ready, emerging in a dress that was simultaneously elegant and bold, deep emerald silk that set off her skin, cut to showcase her curves without apology. Min-ho's breath actually caught when he saw her. "You look," he started, then stopped, unsure how to finish. "Beautiful," he finally said. "Thank you," Eliana replied, smoothing the fabric nervously. "I feel like I'm about to walk into a lion's den." "You are," Min-ho said honestly. "They're going to stare. They're going to whisper. They're going to judge. Can you handle it?" Eliana's chin lifted. "I've been handling it my whole life. Let's go." The gala was exactly as brutal as Min-ho predicted. Heads turned when they entered. Conversations paused. Eliana was likely the only black woman in a room of 500 people, and the attention was palpable. Some guests approached with genuine warmth. Others kept their distance with barely disguised distaste. And some, like Park, the rival who'd stared at the wedding, looked at Eliana like she was something to be consumed. Min-ho kept his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through introductions, translating when needed, playing the devoted husband with practiced ease. But when Park approached, when his eyes raked over Eliana with open hunger, something ugly stirred in Min-ho's chest. "Mrs. Kang," Park said, ignoring Min-ho entirely, "you look absolutely stunning tonight." "Thank you," Eliana said coolly. "I'd love to steal you for a dance," Park said, extending his hand. "If your husband doesn't mind." Min-ho minded. Minded in a way that was completely irrational given that he didn't love her, didn't want her, was only married to her to hide his real relationship. But watching Park's predatory smile, imagining his hands on her, something possessive and fierce flooded through him. "Actually," Min-ho said, his voice cold enough to frost glass, "I do mind. We were just leaving." Park's eyebrows rose. "So soon?" "Business emergency," Min-ho said, already guiding Eliana toward the exit. She went willingly, confusion flickering across her face. Once they were in the car, privacy partition up, she turned to him. "What was that about?" Min-ho's hands clenched into fists. I don't like the way he looks at you. So? Eliana said. Lots of men look at me. It doesn't mean anything. It means, Minho said tightly, that he sees you as a conquest, as something exotic to collect. And I won't let him treat you like that. Eliana stared at him. You're jealous. I'm protective, Minho corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Eliana asked softly. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks an awful lot like jealousy. And that doesn't make sense. You don't want me. You want him. Minho went very still. His name hung in the air between them like a third presence. I know, Eliana continued quietly. I've watched you check your phone every hour, hoping he'll text. I've heard you pace your room at night. I know you're in love with Jae-sung, so why does it bother you when other men look at me? Because, Minho said, the words surprising him as much as her, you're my wife, and even if this is fake, even if it's temporary, even if I don't love you the way a husband should, that still means something. It means I protect you. It means I don't let men like Park treat you like an object. It means, he stopped, struggling, it means I care, even when I don't want to. Eliana's expression softened. Okay, she said. Thank you for protecting me, even when you don't have to. They rode the rest of the way in silence, but something had shifted between them, a new understanding, a deepening of whatever strange bond they were forming. That night, Minho couldn't sleep again. He was in the kitchen at 2 a.m. when Eliana emerged, also clearly unable to rest. They looked at each other. Without words, Eliana pulled out a bottle of wine from the rack. Minho found glasses. They moved to the living room, settling on opposite ends of the couch. Tell me about him, Eliana said after her first sip. About Jae-sung. Minho hesitated. Then, slowly, the story came out. How they'd met in university. How friendship had blossomed into something more. How they'd kept it secret for years, stolen moments and hidden touches. How the photos had shattered everything. How watching Jae-sung at the wedding had felt like dying. When he finished, Eliana was quiet. Then she said, Do you still talk to him? No, Minho admitted. He won't return my calls. I tried texting. Nothing. He blames me for choosing this over us. And maybe he's right. Maybe I'm a coward. You're not a coward, Eliana said firmly. You're trapped. There's a difference. She set down her wine glass. Can I tell you something? Only if you want to. I was engaged, Eliana said quietly. Back in London. His name was Samuel. British. White. From old money. We met at Oxford. I thought he loved me. Thought we were building a future together. Past tense, Minho observed. Past tense, Eliana agreed. 2 months before our wedding, I found out he'd been telling his friends that I was. And she paused, her voice hardening. A phase, something exotic to fuck before he settled down with someone appropriate. Someone who looked right on Christmas cards. Someone who wouldn't embarrass his family. Minho's jaw clenched. He said that? He said worse, Eliana said. When I confronted him, he didn't even try to deny it. He said I should be grateful, that men like him don't usually marry women like me, that I should have known it wasn't real. So I left, canceled the wedding, humiliated his family. And when my father's business partner, your father, offered this arrangement, I took it. Because at least this way, the lies are up front. At least this way, I know exactly where I stand. Minho moved closer without thinking. I'm sorry, he said, that he treated you like that. You deserved better. So did you, Eliana said, meeting his eyes. You deserved to love who you wanted without fear, without shame. We both got dealt shitty hands, didn't we? Yeah, Minho said softly. We really did. They sat there, closer now, sharing space and pain and understanding. And for the first time since the wedding, Minho didn't feel quite so alone. The next morning, everything changed. Minho was at the office when his assistant buzzed him with unexpected urgency. Sir, there's someone here to see you. He says it's important. Who? Minho asked, already knowing the answer. Jae-sung, she said quietly. He won't leave until you see him. Minho's heart stopped, then started again, racing. Send him in. The door opened. Jae-sung entered, and Minho's breath caught. He looked terrible, thinner than he'd been at the wedding. dark circles under his eyes, but still beautiful, still the person Minho loved more than breathing. "We need to talk," Jae-sung said without preamble. Minho nodded. His assistant closed the door, leaving them alone. "I can't do this," Jae-sung said, his composure cracking. "I can't watch you live with her. Can't see photos of you two at events. Can't pretend this doesn't destroy me every single day." "Jae-sung." Minho started, but Jae-sung held up a hand. "I'm leaving Seoul," he said. "I got a job offer in Singapore. I'm taking it. I leave next week. And I came here to say goodbye." "No," Minho said, the word ripping out of him. "You can't leave." "Why not?" Jae-sung's voice was bitter. "Give me one good reason why I should stay and watch you play house with your wife." "Because I love you," Minho said desperately. "Because this marriage doesn't mean anything. Because the moment the 3 years are up, I'm divorcing her and we can be together." "3 years," Jae-sung repeated. "You want me to wait 3 years while you sleep beside her every night?" "I'm not sleeping with her," Minho said. "It's not real. It's a business arrangement." "Does she know that?" Jae-sung asked. "Does she know you're planning to leave her the moment you can? Or are you lying to her too?" "I'm not lying," Minho said. "She knows this is temporary. She wants out as much as I do." "Then why?" Jae-sung asked, his voice breaking. "Why did you defend her at the gala? Why did you look ready to kill Park for flirting with her? Why are you acting like a real husband if this doesn't mean anything?" Minho didn't have an answer. Couldn't explain the possessiveness that had surged through him, the protective fury, the strange sense of caring that had developed for Eliana despite everything. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe because, even if it's fake, she still deserves respect. She still deserves protection." "That's not good enough," Jae-sung said. "Not for me. I can't be your secret while you have a whole life with someone else, even if that life is a lie. I need more than stolen moments and hidden phone calls. I need someone who chooses me. And you chose her." "I chose survival," Minho said. "I chose not letting my father destroy both of us. But you didn't choose me," Jae-sung said simply. "And I need to accept that. So I'm leaving. I'm moving on. And you need to let me go." He walked toward the door. Minho wanted to stop him, wanted to beg him to stay, wanted to burn down everything, his father's empire, his own company, the entire world, just to keep Jae-sung from walking away. But he couldn't, because Jae-sung was right. He'd made his choice, and now he had to live with it. The door closed, and Minho stood alone in his office, feeling like he'd just lost the only thing that had ever mattered. That evening, Minho came home to find Eliana cooking. It was unexpected. She'd never cooked before, always ordering in or eating separately. But now she stood at the stove, stirring something that smelled like spices and comfort. "You look like hell," she said without turning around. "What happened?" "He came to say goodbye," Minho said, collapsing onto a bar stool. "He's leaving Seoul, moving to Singapore." Eliana turned, concern etched across her face. "I'm sorry." "It's my fault," Minho said. "All of it. I should have fought harder, should have told my father to go to hell, should have chosen him instead of this nightmare." Eliana set down the spoon, came around the counter. She pulled Minho into a hug, and he went stiffly at first, then melted into it. She was warm, soft, solid, real in a way nothing else felt. "You made an impossible choice in an impossible situation," she said against his hair. "That doesn't make you a coward. That makes you human." "But I lost him," Minho said, and he was horrified to feel tears burning behind his eyes. "I lost the only person I've ever loved." "Then we'll get him back," Eliana said firmly. "Somehow, when the 3 years are up, we'll figure it out." "How?" Minho asked bitterly. "He'll have moved on by then." "Maybe," Eliana said. "Or maybe he'll realize that loving someone means waiting for them, that real love doesn't have an expiration date." She pulled back, meeting his eyes. "And if he doesn't wait, if he finds someone else, then at least you'll know you tried. At least you'll have the truth." Minho looked at her, really looked. At this woman who'd been a stranger a month ago and was now the closest thing he had to a friend. "Why are you being so kind to me?" he asked. "After everything?" "Because," Eliana said softly, "we're in this together. And if we're going to survive the next 3 years without losing ourselves completely, We need to be kind to each other. It's the only weapon we have against the people who trapped us here. Something cracked open in Minho's chest. He pulled her back into the hug, holding tighter this time. "Thank you," he whispered, "for understanding, for not hating me." "How could I hate you?" Eliana said. "When we're both prisoners in the same cage." They stood like that for a long time, two broken people holding each other up while the city glittered outside and the future stretched ahead like an endless wasteland. Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. Minho and Eliana grew closer, not romantically, but as genuine companions. They'd have breakfast together, discussing their days. She'd read him passages from her dissertation, explaining concepts he didn't understand. He'd tell her about business deals, asking her opinion on ethical dilemmas. They'd watch movies together late at night, sitting on opposite ends of the couch, occasionally laughing at the same jokes. They'd developed inside references, small rituals, a rhythm that felt almost normal. And Minho started to notice things. The way Eliana bit her lip when she was concentrating, how she'd hum while cooking, old songs in languages he didn't recognize. The fact that she was terrified of thunderstorms, would appear in his doorway during Seoul's summer rains, asking if she could sit in his room until it passed. The softness in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. The loneliness that mirrored his own. He wasn't falling in love with her. That wasn't what this was. But he cared about her, genuinely cared. And that realization was terrifying in its own way. 2 months into the marriage, they attended another event. This time, a gallery opening hosted by one of Minho's business associates. Eliana wore red, bold, and unapologetic, her hair in twists that framed her face like a crown. She was stunning. Minho told her so, and the smile she gave him felt real, warm. "Thank you," she said, linking her arm through his. "Ready to face the wolves?" "Always," Minho replied, and meant it. The evening progressed smoothly until Park appeared again, drunk this time, his eyes tracking Eliana with even more blatant hunger than before. "Mrs. Kang," he slurred, weaving toward them. "You're even more beautiful than last time. If your husband ever gets boring, I'd love to show you how a real man treats a woman like you." Minho's hand tightened on Eliana's waist. "A real man," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "knows how to respect a woman. Something you clearly don't understand." Park laughed. "Oh, come on, Kang. We all know this marriage is a business arrangement. You can't possibly satisfy her. Not when you prefer." He paused meaningfully. "Other options." The implications hung in the air like poison. Minho's blood ran cold. Park knew, or suspected. Either way, it was dangerous. Before Minho could respond, Eliana stepped forward. "Mr. Park," she said, her voice cutting like a blade. "My husband satisfies me in every way imaginable, and even if he didn't, I certainly wouldn't seek satisfaction from a pathetic drunk who can't take a hint. Now leave before you embarrass yourself further." Park's face flushed with rage and humiliation. He opened his mouth to retort, but Minho stepped between them. "You heard my wife," he said coldly. "Leave. Now." Park stumbled away, muttering obscenities. The crowd had noticed. Whispers spread. Minho could feel the weight of attention, of speculation, of danger. "We're leaving," he said quietly. Eliana nodded. They left the gallery without further incident. But in the car, Minho's hands shook with delayed rage and fear. "He knows," Eliana said softly. "Or he suspects. What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Minho admitted. "If he starts spreading rumors, if this gets back to my father, we need to be more convincing," Eliana said. "The marriage needs to look real. Completely real." "What are you suggesting?" Minho asked. "I'm suggesting," Eliana said carefully, "that we start acting like a real couple, not just at events, everywhere. We hold hands, we kiss for cameras, we sell the illusion so thoroughly that no one can question it, including your father." Minho's throat tightened. "You'd do that? For me?" "I'd do it for us," Eliana corrected. "Because if your father finds out the truth, this arrangement ends. And I'm not ready to go back to my life yet. I'm not ready to face the questions, the judgment, the humiliation of another failed relationship. So yes, I'll pretend to be desperately in love with you if it keeps us both safe." Minho looked at her. At this fierce, brilliant woman who'd been thrown into his nightmare and had chosen to stand beside him anyway. "Okay," he said. "We'll sell it. We'll make everyone believe this is real." "Starting when?" Eliana asked. "Starting now," Minho said. He reached over, took her hand, laced their fingers together. Her palm was warm against his. They sat like that for the rest of the drive, holding hands in the dark, two people play-acting intimacy while their hearts belonged to ghosts. The shift in their dynamic was subtle but noticeable. They started leaving for work together, Minho dropping Eliana at the university library where she spent her days. They'd have lunch occasionally, making sure to be seen at popular restaurants, sitting close, laughing like lovers. At home, they'd cook together, their movements synchronized in the small kitchen, bodies brushing as they navigated around each other. They'd watch television with Eliana's head resting on Minho's shoulder, his arm around her waist. They'd take late-night walks through their neighborhood, fingers intertwined, practicing the choreography of affection. And slowly, the lines started to blur. Minho found himself genuinely enjoying her company, looking forward to coming home, missing her when she was gone. He'd catch himself buying things he thought she'd like, remembering her favorite foods, paying attention to her preferences. It wasn't love. He reminded himself of that constantly, but it was something that felt dangerous in its own way. Eliana seemed to be experiencing the same confusion. She'd touch him more frequently, casual gestures that lingered. She'd laugh at his jokes with genuine warmth. She'd share more of herself, talking about her childhood in Lagos, her complicated relationship with her father, her dreams for after the dissertation was finished. They were becoming real to each other, and that terrified them both. 3 months into the marriage, Eliana's father visited Seoul for business. Minho met him for the first time at a formal dinner, Eliana tense beside him. David Cole was exactly what Minho expected. Powerful, wealthy, controlling. He assessed Minho with the cold calculation of someone used to seeing people as assets. "You're taking care of my daughter," he said. It wasn't a question. "I am," Minho replied. "She's brilliant. I'm lucky to have her." "Good," David said. "Because if I find out you've hurt her, business arrangement or not, I'll destroy you." "Understood. Understood," Minho said evenly. After David left, Eliana visibly relaxed. "Sorry about that," she said. "He's protective in his own way?" Minho offered. "Controlling," Eliana corrected. "He sees me as an extension of his empire, not as a person. It's why this arrangement worked so well for him. He gets a business alliance with your father. I get shipped off to Seoul. Everyone wins. Except you," Minho said quietly. "Except me," Eliana agreed. She looked at him. "But it's not all bad. I got you out of it, and you're not terrible company." Minho's chest tightened. "You're not terrible either." They were sitting close, knees touching. The air between them felt charged. Eliana's gaze dropped to his lips. For a moment, Minho thought she might kiss him. For a moment, he wanted her to. Then his phone buzzed. The moment shattered. Minho checked it, and his heart stopped. A text from Jae-sung, the first in months. It read simply, "I miss you. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" Minho stared at the screen. Eliana saw his expression. "Him?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," Minho said. "He wants to talk." "Then talk to him," Eliana said, standing. "Don't let this opportunity pass because you're sitting here with me." Minho looked up at her. "What if—" But Eliana shook her head. "No, what ifs. Go, call him, figure out if there's still something worth fighting for. I'll be fine." Minho stood, pulled her into a quick hug. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he went to his room, closed the door, and called Jae-sung. The conversation lasted 2 hours. They talked about everything. The pain, the anger, the love that hadn't died despite the distance. Jae-sung admitted he'd tried to move on, had dated someone in Singapore, but it hadn't worked. Couldn't work when Minho still lived in every corner of his heart. Minho apologized, explained the impossible situation, promised that the moment the 3 years were up, he'd divorce Eliana and they could be together. For real. Publicly. No more hiding. "Can you wait for me?" Minho asked desperately. Can you give me 3 years? I don't know, Jae-sung said honestly. 3 years is a long time. A lot can change, but I still love you. That hasn't changed. Then hold on to that, Minho said. Hold on to us. I promise. The moment I'm free, I'm yours. Completely. There was silence. Then Jae-sung said softly, I'll try. I can't promise I'll succeed, but I'll try. It was more than Minho deserved, more than he'd dared hope for. When the call ended, he sat in the dark, feeling something like hope for the first time in months. The door cracked open. Eliana peeked in. How did it go? He still loves me, Minho said, wonder in his voice. He's going to wait. That's good, Eliana said. That's really good. She moved into the room, sat beside him on the bed. I'm happy for you. Are you? Minho asked, studying her face. Because you seem sad. I am happy, Eliana insisted. Just also aware that when you leave me in 3 years, I'll be alone again. You won't be alone, Minho said. You'll have your doctorate, your freedom, the whole world ahead of you. Maybe, Eliana said. Or maybe I'll just be another discarded wife, another woman who wasn't enough. You are enough, Minho said fiercely. You're more than enough. Samuel was an idiot for not seeing that. So is any man who can't appreciate how extraordinary you are. Eliana smiled, but it was fragile. Thank you, she said, for saying that, even if you don't mean it. I do mean it, Minho said, and realized he did. Completely. They sat in companionable silence. Then Eliana stood. I should let you sleep. You've had an emotional night. Eliana, Minho called as she reached the door. Yeah, thank you. For understanding. For being patient with me. For being, he paused. For being you. Eliana's eyes softened. Get some rest, Minho. Tomorrow's another day of pretending. But as the door closed, Minho wondered if they were still pretending, or if somewhere along the way, the fiction had started becoming truth. 4 months into the marriage, Seoul's summer arrived with brutal heat and heavier rain. One evening, a massive thunderstorm rolled in, shaking the penthouse with its fury. Minho was in his study when Eliana appeared in the doorway, wearing sleep clothes, her face tight with barely controlled fear. Can I? She started, then stopped. Can I stay in here? The storm? Yeah, she admitted. I know it's stupid, but it's not stupid, Minho said immediately. Come in. She settled on the small couch in his study, pulling her knees to her chest. Minho turned off the harsh overhead light, leaving just his desk lamp glowing. Better? Better, she said gratefully. They sat in comfortable quiet while the storm raged outside. Then Eliana said softly, When I was 7, my mother and I got caught in a flash flood in Lagos. Our car stalled. Water started rising. She had to break the window to get us out. I've been terrified of storms ever since. Minho moved to sit beside her. I'm sorry you went through that. Your mother, is she? She died when I was 15, Eliana said. Cancer. It was fast. One day she was fine. 6 months later, she was gone. My father buried himself in work. I buried myself in books. And we both learned how to survive without her. Minho took her hand. I lost my mother too. Not to death, but to duty. She's alive, but she stopped being a person when she married my father. Just became this perfect corporate wife. No opinions, no dreams, just appearances and expectations. I think that's when I realized I couldn't marry someone I actually loved, because I'd either have to hide them or destroy them, and I couldn't do either. So you chose to hide yourself instead, Eliana said. Yeah, Minho admitted. Seemed easier. Was it? No, he said honestly. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. They sat holding hands while lightning lit up the sky and thunder shook the windows. Eliana moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder. This is nice, she murmured. Just existing with someone who understands. It is, Minho agreed, and meant it. They stayed like that until the storm passed, until Eliana's breathing evened out in sleep. Minho didn't move, didn't want to disturb her, so he sat there, her weight warm against him, and let himself admit a terrifying truth. He was starting to care about Eliana in ways that went beyond friendship, beyond their arrangement, beyond what was safe or smart or allowed. The next morning, Eliana woke in her own bed with no memory of how she got there. Min-ho must have carried her. The thought made her chest tight with something she couldn't name. Downstairs, Min-ho was making breakfast, and when he saw her, his smile was genuine and warm. "Morning, sleeper. The storm didn't wake you again?" "No," Eliana said. "Thank you for letting me stay. For being kind. Always," Min-ho said simply. "Then, coffee?" "Please," Eliana said. And as she watched him pour her cup exactly how she liked it, 2 sugars and a splash of cream, she felt something dangerous bloom in her chest, something that felt terrifyingly like affection. 5 months in, they had to attend Min-ho's family gathering, a formal dinner at his parents' estate where extended family would scrutinize their marriage, searching for cracks in the facade. Eliana was terrified. Min-ho could see it in the way she kept adjusting her dress, practicing her Korean greetings, biting her lip until it bled. "Hey," he said, catching her hands. "Look at me. We've got this. You're brilliant. You're charming. And you're my wife. They'll love you. And if they don't," Min-ho's expression hardened, "then they'll pretend to, because I won't tolerate anyone disrespecting you. Understood?" The dinner was exactly as awful as expected. Min-ho's father was coldly polite. His mother was overly warm in that performative way that felt more like an evaluation than genuine welcome. Extended family members asked intrusive questions about their relationship, when they'd have children, whether Eliana was finding Seoul overwhelming. One particularly vicious aunt made a comment about mixed children having identity issues. Min-ho's response was immediate and cutting. "Aunt Ji-eun," he said, his voice pleasant but his eyes cold as death, "if you say one more word that disrespects my wife or any hypothetical future children we might have, you'll find yourself disinvited from all future family events. Understood?" The table went silent. His aunt's face flushed with humiliation. His father looked ready to intervene, then thought better of it, because everyone at that table understood power dynamics, and right now, Min-ho held the power. "I understand," Aunt Ji-eun said tightly. "Good," Min-ho said. Under the table, Eliana's hand found his, squeezed gratefully. He squeezed back, a silent promise. "I've got you, always." After dinner, while the family socialized in the living room, Min-ho pulled Eliana into the garden for air. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Defend me so publicly." "Yes," Min-ho said firmly. "I did. Because you're my wife, and I don't let anyone hurt what's mine." There it was again, that possessive streak that made no logical sense. But Eliana didn't question it. Instead, she stepped closer, reached up, and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, a thank you and a question all at once. Min-ho froze for half a second. Then his hands came to her waist and he kissed her back. It was different from their performative public kisses. This was private, real, and it sparked something neither of them had expected. Heat, want, the dangerous possibility of more. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eliana looked stunned. "I shouldn't have," she started. "Don't apologize," Min-ho said. "Unless you didn't mean it." Eliana stopped. "I don't know what I meant. You defended me. You made me feel protected. And I wanted." She couldn't finish. Min-ho understood anyway, because he'd wanted it too. Still wanted it. Wanted to pull her back, kiss her until neither of them could think straight, find out what it felt like when the pretense became reality. But he couldn't. Because Jae-sung, because their arrangement, because crossing that line would complicate everything in ways neither of them could afford. "We should go back inside," he said roughly, "before people notice we're gone." "Right," Eliana said, stepping back. "Of course." They returned to the gathering, maintaining perfect appearances. But something had shifted. Again. And both of them felt it. The aftermath of that kiss haunted them for weeks. They were more careful around each other, more distant, as if proximity was dangerous. But Min-ho couldn't stop thinking about it. About the way Eliana had tasted, the soft sound she'd made when he'd deepened the kiss, the way his body had responded to hers, immediate and overwhelming. He'd never felt that with a woman before, had assumed he never would. And now he didn't know what to do with the realization that maybe, possibly, his sexuality was more complicated than he'd thought. Meanwhile, Eliana was spiraling. She'd kissed him, had wanted to kiss him, had felt things she shouldn't feel for a man who was only her husband in name, a man who was in love with someone else, a man who'd made it clear their marriage had an expiration date, but her heart didn't seem to care about logic. It just knew that Min-ho made her feel safe in a way no one had since her mother died, made her laugh, made her feel seen, and she was falling for him. Slowly, terribly, inevitably, 6 months into the marriage, everything came to a head. Min-ho received a call from his father demanding an emergency meeting. When he arrived at the family office, his father's expression was colder than usual. "There's been talk," his father said without preamble. "People are questioning your marriage, questioning whether it's real." Min-ho's blood ran cold. "What kind of talk? The kind that suggests you married Eliana to cover up other?" His father paused meaningfully. "Preferences. Someone's been spreading rumors. Park. It had to be Park." Min-ho's hands clenched into fists. "The rumors aren't true," he said evenly. "My marriage is real." "Then prove it," his father said. "Eliana's been here 6 months. There should be signs. Pregnancy, plans for children. Something concrete that shows this isn't just a business arrangement." Min-ho's throat tightened. "We're not ready for children yet." "Then get ready," his father said coldly. "Because if there's no pregnancy within the next 6 months, I'll know this marriage is a sham, and I'll take appropriate action." The threat was clear. Exposure, ruin, destruction of everything Min-ho had built. He left his father's office feeling like a noose was tightening around his neck. That evening, he told Eliana everything, watched as her face went pale. "He wants me pregnant," she repeated slowly. "Within 6 months. That's..." She stopped. "Insane," Min-ho agreed. "I know. I'm sorry. This wasn't part of our arrangement." "No," Eliana said. "It really wasn't." She stood, paced the living room. "What happens if I refuse? If we don't give him what he wants?" "Then he exposes the marriage as fake," Min-ho said quietly. "Exposes me, destroys both our reputations, and probably ruins your father's business relationship with him in the process." "Your father would be devastated," Eliana said. "Mine would be furious." "So we're trapped," Min-ho said. Again, Eliana stopped pacing, looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. "There's one option we haven't considered." "What?" "We make it real," Eliana said. "The marriage. She took a breath. "We actually try to have a baby." Min-ho stared at her. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious," Eliana said. "Look, we're already living together. We get along. We're friends. And that kiss..." She paused. "That kiss proved there's at least physical attraction. So why not? Why not try to make this real?" "Because..." Min-ho stopped. "Because why? What was his objection? That he was gay? But was he? The kiss had proven he could be attracted to Eliana, that he wanted her in ways that surprised him, that maybe sexuality was more fluid than he'd believed. "Because of Jae-sung," he said finally. "Because I love him." "I know," Eliana said gently. "And I'm not asking you to stop loving him. I'm just asking you to consider that maybe, possibly, you could also care about me. In a different way. A way that makes this sustainable." Her eyes held his. "I'm falling for you, Min-ho. I've been trying not to. But I am. And if we're going to be stuck in this marriage anyway, if we're going to have to produce an heir to satisfy your father, then maybe we should at least try to build something real. Something that doesn't feel like a prison." Min-ho's heart hammered. "Eliana, I don't know if I can give you what you need." "Then let's find out," she said. "Together. No more pretending. No more keeping each other at arm's length. Let's actually try." Min-ho looked at her. At this beautiful, fierce, brilliant woman who'd somehow become essential to his happiness, who understood him in ways no one else did, who was offering him a lifeline even though it meant sacrificing her own heart. "Okay," he heard himself say. "Okay, let's try." The shift was immediate and terrifying. That night, they had dinner together as usual, but afterward, instead of retreating to separate rooms, they sat together on the couch, close. Minho's arm around Eliana's shoulders, her head resting on his chest. They watched a movie neither of them paid attention to, and when it ended, Minho walked Eliana to her room, stood in her doorway. "Good night," he said. "Good night," Eliana replied. Neither of them moved. Then, slowly, Minho stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Eliana's eyes widened. "Minho, are you sure about this?" he asked. "About us trying?" "Yes," Eliana whispered. "I'm sure." Minho crossed to her, cupped her face, kissed her with the kind of intensity that left no room for doubt. Eliana kissed back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. They fell onto her bed, a tangle of limbs and need and terrified hope. "This is insane," Minho murmured against her mouth. "Completely," Eliana agreed. "But when has that ever stopped us?" When Minho woke the next morning, Eliana was curled against him, her head on his chest, one arm thrown across his waist. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and for the first time in months, Minho felt something like peace. Over the following weeks, their relationship transformed completely. They were trying, really trying. Minho found himself genuinely attracted to Eliana, wanting her in ways that surprised and sometimes confused him. They'd spend evenings together, talking and laughing and slowly, carefully, building physical intimacy. It wasn't like what he'd had with Jae-sung. It was different, softer in some ways, more complicated in others. But it was real, and that mattered. Eliana bloomed under his attention. She smiled more, laughed easier, touched him constantly, casual affection that felt earned rather than performed. And Minho found himself falling, not out of love with Jae-sung, that would probably never fully die, but into something new with Eliana, something that felt like it could sustain them both. 2 months into their new arrangement, Eliana took a pregnancy test. Minho waited outside the bathroom, heart pounding. When she emerged, she was crying. He couldn't read whether they were happy tears or sad ones. "What?" he started. "Positive," Eliana said, holding up the stick. "I'm pregnant." Minho's world tilted. He pulled her into his arms, and she came willingly, still crying. "Are you okay?" he asked. "With this? With us?" "I think so," Eliana said. "I mean, this wasn't the plan. This wasn't how I imagined having a baby. But," she pulled back to look at him, "I'm glad it's with you. I'm glad our child will have you as a father." Minho's throat tightened. "I'm going to love this baby," he said fiercely. "No matter what else happens, no matter how complicated everything gets, this child will be loved, wanted, protected." "I know," Eliana said softly. "That's why I'm okay with this. Because I trust you." They stood in the bathroom, holding each other, contemplating the impossible future they'd just created. The pregnancy changed everything and nothing. Minho became impossibly protective, hovering over Eliana constantly, making sure she ate properly, rested enough, stayed safe. She found it endearing and exasperating in equal measure. "I'm pregnant, not dying," she'd say. "You're carrying my child," he'd respond. "That makes you precious cargo." Eliana would roll her eyes but smile anyway, because his protectiveness felt genuine, felt like love, even if he'd never said the words. They told their families at 3 months. Minho's parents were thrilled, his father's suspicions apparently laid to rest. Eliana's father was pleased, already talking about business succession and heirs. But in private, alone, Minho and Eliana had a different conversation. "What happens after?" she asked one night, her hand resting on her barely visible bump. "After the baby's born? After the 3 years are up?" "I don't know," Minho admitted. "I promised Jae-sung I'd divorce you, come back to him." "Do you still want that?" Eliana asked quietly. "Do you still love him?" "Yes," Minho said. "But I also—" He stopped, struggling. "I also care about you, about this baby, and I don't know how to reconcile those things." "Maybe you don't have to," Eliana said. "Maybe caring about both of us isn't a betrayal. Maybe it's just being human." Minho pulled her close. "I don't deserve you," he said. "You're too understanding, too patient." "I'm not patient," Eliana said. "I'm just realistic. I knew what this was when I signed up, and if we only get 3 years, if that's all we're allowed, then I want to make them count. I want to build something beautiful with you. Even if it's temporary, even if it ends. It doesn't have to end, Minho heard himself say. What? The marriage. It doesn't have to end. We could, he paused. We could make it permanent. Raise our child together, build a real life. Eliana pulled back to look at him. What about Jae-sung? What about the promise you made? I don't know, Minho admitted. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I can't have him and give him what he needs. Not when I'm also committed to you and our child. Maybe I need to let him go. You can't make that decision lightly, Eliana said. Not because of me, not because of obligation. If you stay, it has to be because you want to, because you choose this. Choose us. I am choosing you, Minho said. Maybe I have been for months. I just didn't want to admit it because it felt like a betrayal. Who are you betraying? Eliana asked gently. Jae-sung or yourself? Both, Minho said. Neither. I don't know anymore. Eliana kissed him softly. Figure it out, she said. Take the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. As Minho held her, he realized she was right. He needed to make a real choice. Not one forced by circumstances or expectations or fear. A choice about who he was and who he wanted to be. The next day, Minho called Jae-sung. They met at a quiet cafe far from prying eyes. Jae-sung looked good, healthier than he'd been at the wedding. He'd found some measure of peace in Singapore. It showed. You wanted to talk, Jae-sung said carefully. I did, Minho said. I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear all of it before you respond. Jae-sung nodded, wariness in his eyes. Eliana's pregnant, Minho said. It wasn't planned, but it happened. And, he took a breath, I'm not leaving her. Not when the 3 years are up. Not ever. I'm staying. I'm making this marriage real. Jae-sung went very still. I see. I know I promised, Minho continued. I know I said I'd come back to you, but I can't. Not anymore. Because somewhere along the way, I fell for her. Not the same way I love you, but enough. Enough that I can't abandon her and our child. Enough that staying feels right in a way leaving doesn't. Jae-sung's jaw worked. So you're choosing her. I'm choosing my family, Minho said quietly. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. That I'll ever stop loving you. You were my first love, my truest love, and I'll carry that forever. But you're not choosing me, Jae-sung said. No, Minho admitted. I'm not, and I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I made promises I couldn't keep. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I'm not the person you needed me to be. Jae-sung stood. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. Thank you for being honest, he said. Finally, I hope you're happy with her. I hope you build something beautiful. And I hope, he paused, I hope someday I can forgive you for this. With that, he left. Minho sat alone, feeling like something essential had been torn out of him, but also feeling, strangely, free. He'd made his choice. For better or worse, he'd chosen Eliana and their future child. Now he just had to live with it. That evening, Minho came home to find Eliana cooking, her small bump just visible under her loose shirt. She looked up when he entered, concern immediate on her face. How did it go? She asked. I told him, Minho said. Told him I'm staying with you, that we're real. And? He left, Minho said. I don't think he'll forgive me. Not for a long time. Maybe not ever. I'm sorry, Eliana said. I know how much he meant to you, still means to you. He did, Minho said. Does. But so do you. And I had to choose. Eliana set down the spoon, came to him. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. Did I make the right choice? He asked. Only you can answer that, Eliana said. Minho pulled back, looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who'd been a stranger, then a friend, then something infinitely more complicated. I think I did, he said. I think I'm falling in love with you, and that terrifies me, because I didn't think I could love a woman this way, didn't think my heart worked like that. You don't have to love me, Eliana said gently. This arrangement works without romance. I know, Minho said, but I want to love you, want to build a real marriage, want to be the husband you deserve instead of just the one circumstances gave you. Eliana's eyes filled with tears. "Damn pregnancy hormones," she said, wiping them away. "I love you too. Have for months." Was just too scared to say it. Minho kissed her then, deep and thorough and full of promise. And when they finally came up for air, both breathing hard, he said, "Marry me. We're already married." Eliana laughed. "I mean really marry me," Minho said. "Let's have a real wedding, just us. No pressure, no performance, just two people choosing each other." "Okay," Eliana whispered. "Yes, let's do it." They had the ceremony a month later, on a quiet beach outside Seoul, just them, a minister, and two witnesses Minho trusted. Eliana wore white again, but this time it felt right. This time, when Minho slipped the ring on her finger, his hand didn't shake with anger, it shook with love. And when he kissed her, it wasn't for show, it was real. The baby came 7 months later, a girl, healthy and perfect and loud. They named her Sora, which meant sky, because both Minho and Eliana wanted her to feel unlimited by the constraints that had bound them. When the nurse placed Sora in Minho's arms for the first time, he cried, openly, unashamed. This tiny human was his and Eliana's, a miracle born from chaos and impossible choices and love that grew in the spaces where it wasn't supposed to exist. Eliana watched from the hospital bed, exhausted but radiant. "You're a natural," she said. He looked at her, at the woman who'd saved him in ways he was still discovering. "Thank you," he said, "for this, for her, for giving me a life I didn't know I could have. Thank you for choosing us," Eliana said, "for staying even when it was hard." Minho brought Sora to Eliana's bedside. Their family, imperfect and complicated and absolutely theirs. "I'm never leaving," he said. "This is where I belong. With you, with her, with us." Eliana took his free hand. "We're in this together. Always. Always," Minho agreed. And as he looked at his wife and daughter, he felt something settle in his chest. Peace. Maybe even happiness. The kind that came from finally being honest. From finally choosing love over fear. From finally allowing himself to be seen and still feeling worthy. 1 year later, Minho sat in his office when an email arrived. From Jae-sung. It was short. "I saw the birth announcement. Congratulations on your daughter. I'm happy for you both, truly. I've met someone here in Singapore. He makes me smile. I wanted you to know. Not because I need your approval, but because I wanted you to know I'm okay. I survived losing you, and I'm building something new. I hope you're doing the same. Wishing you all the best, Jae-sung." Minho read it 3 times. Then he replied, "Thank you. I'm glad you're happy. You deserve that more than anyone. I'm sorry for everything I put you through, but I'm grateful for what we had. You taught me how to love, even if I had to learn how to do it differently than we planned. Be well, Minho." That evening, he told Eliana about the email. She listened quietly, then said, "Do you regret it? Choosing us over him?" "Sometimes," Minho admitted, "but mostly, no. Because what we have, what we've built, it's real in ways I didn't know were possible for me. And Sora," he smiled, "she's everything. So no, I don't regret it." "Even when it hurts?" Eliana asked. "Even then," Minho said. He pulled her close. "You okay with that answer?" "More than okay," Eliana said, "because I know you're being honest, and honesty is all I've ever wanted from you." They stood at the window of their penthouse, watching Seoul glitter below, their daughter sleeping peacefully in the next room. And Minho thought about how far they'd come, from a forced marriage to real love, from strangers to partners, from pretending to the beautiful, complicated truth of their life together. It wasn't the story he'd planned, wasn't the life he'd imagined, but it was his, and that made it perfect.